I do have a secret that I want to share with you. I want to become a stand comedian. Actually, I would not say I want to become. I want to try once to see how it is. It have to be very hard. They say one of the harder profession is to make people laugh. And then also I'm thinking with this accent, I don't know, I think half of the audience will be like, what he's saying? Like I have friends that I try to talk to them. I was like, So I hope you understand what I'm saying. And I never thought about that. Maybe you don't understand what I'm saying. I hope you do. Anyway, the point is, our conversation today is with a very talented stand comedian. His name is Daniel Weingarten, and I'm very, very excited to have him waiting for us to have this conversation. I think he has it. He has a very bright future ahead of him. He's very funny, and our co-host also is very talented and very funny. My co-host is one of my students, David Hite. He was the host for the holiday television special last fall, and he's here today also to be part of the conversation and to help me co-host the episode of today. So, stay tuned. Let's watch the episode. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to follow us on Instagram, and to spread the word that we are here and we're doing this video podcast for you. That help will be awesome. We will really, really appreciate it. So welcome from Suarez basement, Daniel and David.
Hey.
Yes.
What's up, David? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Actually, why Professor Suarez just sent me an email because I used to do a television show up at college with him, and
cool.
I just graduated college, of course, so it's like super weird because I can't go out right now into doing stand-up comedy, which I would love to do just as as a side thing, you know.
No, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure I can only imagine that graduating from college right now, just in general, must be very weird.
It's super weird.
Just all of the sort of like traditional ceremonial stuff that goes along with it is just totally flipped on its head. And then it's like, now go out into the world and conquer. And it's like, well, this is what the world is. It's weird. And it's, yeah.
But I kind of can take comfort in the fact that I'm not the only one who's who it's weird for. It's weird for you, you know?
Yeah, which I think is the best perspective to take. I think it's definitely very easy to sort of like look just at your own individual situation and to be like, you know, to sort of not focus on the fact that that this is a collective thing that we're going on just as like a species and as like, you know, and once you do that, I think that helps put in perspective and have like a healthier relationship with the reality of it all, even though it still is very difficult. But you know, I think even then, it goes back to like the number one sort of like principle that I try to like live by, which is just that like patience is key. You know, I think like it's very easy. I mean, I don't think it ever ends, but we always are like, I want to go achieve the next thing and I want to go do it now and I want to make it happen now, next week, in a month or whatever. And it's healthy to be motivated in that sense. But I think, you know, when it comes to, you know, even being results oriented, you know, thinking longer term and focusing just on like the craft of it all and actually getting better at the thing you're trying to succeed at. And I think there's ways to work on that now, even though you know, specifically with stand-up, there aren't clubs.
With stand-up specifically. Do you ever feel like your material, like for me at least, like when I'm writing my material and I'm performing it, I like am always rewriting it and I change the words a little bit just so that like I can see which punchline works a little bit better here and there. Do you feel like your material, now that you aren't like actually performing it like every couple days, do you ever feel like it's put on hold?
What I've actually been doing is I've been releasing a lot of clips. So in a way, it sort of feels like it's weird because like as a stand-up's not like music, right? Music, you can write a hit song, do it 30 years later, people have heard you perform it 25 times and they still love it, you know?
Yeah.
But with stand-up, a joke inherently, you know, sort of loses its gusto the second you hear it, right? You know where it's going, the punch isn't hidden. There are jokes. I mean, there are comics that are so big and they have bits that are so monumental that they'll do them at shows and they literally are like songs. But in general, I think I've been like sort of burning material in a way where like I'll post a clip and in my mind I'm like, okay, I'm probably not going to do that at a show, or I'm less likely to do it at a show. And what that does is sort of forces me just to write new stuff. But yeah, I mean,
I think that's why a lot of comedians post a lot of their like crowd work all the time, because they're like, well, I'm never actually going to use it ever again.
That's very true as well. And I posted crowd work for that very reason too. Because I mean, I do crowd work in my shows, so that is a representation of what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like a nice way to like put
Just
content out. Yeah, exactly.
If I'm correct, your mom is from Mexico, your dad is from Argentina, or is all the way around?
The other way around, yeah.
Right. So your dad is from Argentina, your mom is from Mexico.
No, my mom is from Argentina, and then my dad is from Mexico. Yeah.
Okay. So you grew up in a very interesting household, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess my point is, do this background give you the materials that you work today? And also, do you think that, right, growing up in this type of thing, when did you realize, oh my God, I'm actually a funny person? Or people were start telling you, wow, you should be a stand comedian. How that happened?
Well, I'll say two parts I think to that question. The first thing, when it comes to my background, I think when I was starting to do stand-up, I relied very heavy on that and on that element of my experience. And there's a guy who he's a booker, but he kind of differentiates it between talking about what you are and talking about who you are. Right. Mm-hmm. So like what you are is, I'm talking about being Mexican, about being Argentinian, about being Jewish, and and the jokes can be funny and they're valid and they make people laugh. But then, okay, that's what you are. But then who you are might be a little bit more underneath. That might be more about the feelings that you're experiencing in relation to your identity. I think as I've progressed, I used to always open with that because that was like a way to kind of get the crowd going, right? Now, I might just talk to the crowd for the first couple of minutes, but that's also because I've built up the tools to be able to make that sort of a connection where I feel confident enough that like, I don't need to be funny right away, but I can make them feel like they're in good hands as an audience.
Yeah, that's where I'm most uncomfortable with as like when I do stand-up comedy. I just like, I'll do crowd work when it like, especially if there's like a heckler, like I just feel like I'm obligated to, but I really don't push myself, and I probably should. Like to do crowd work. Because I have all this material and I've like written it and I've developed it. And then it's like, I just don't, and I'm like, okay, I can rely on this because I know that like maybe 40% of it is like already really secure material. And then 60% is stuff that I'm like still developing. And I just don't even factor into my head like space for crowd work. And I probably should, because I think it's going to loosen up the audience better to laugh at that other 60% of it.
I mean, perhaps also it may like, you may bomb terribly, you know what I mean? And that, I mean, that happens to me too. Like but I think the healthiest perspective to have is, and I think in the beginning, it's really easy to get caught up in feeling like you need to crush every time.
Oh no, I bomb all the time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So my point being is that you can have a first night and suddenly it's like, whoa, this is awesome. The audience was there. The audience energy was up. Everybody was laughing. You come back the next day, same place, different audience, and the energy of the audience is not there. How you...
All of the time. Forget the next day, the same night. You do a show... You're working a weekend, Fridays and Saturdays, you may have 2 shows, right? So, first show Friday might be great, and then the late show comes and it's totally different. But I think that all comes back to just repetition. And, before you even get to that point where you're playing, 6 shows and whatnot, you've spent years doing 10-minute spots, 15-minute spots, 7-minute spots in different scenarios. And you've sort of learned what you need to do to make that specific, crowd laugh, or that type of crowd laugh. Or if you have a heckler, like you said, David, right? Like, how do you deal with that heckler without being like super mean and turning off the crowd and still being funny and keeping the show going? Like, I mean, honestly, dude, when I have a heckler, most of the time I think most people don't heckle like to ruin the show. They think they're helping the show. That's always what it is. They always think like, oh, this is what happens in comedy. I'm helping. So like generally I will be like, I'll like give them a chance. I'll be like, hey, listen, I know you think you're helping. You're not. There's 100 people here that paid money to come out here tonight. You're ruining it for them. Don't be that asshole. I don't want to do the thing where I make you feel bad because I can, if we really want to go there, but I don't want to go there. So just like enjoy the show, just laugh. That's it. And if I talk to you, then you can talk to me. And then honestly, dude, most of the time that handles it. And then you keep going.
And you just do that. Like you just like break that wall.
I just break that wall 100%.
I just right in the middle of your set.
Because comedy's all about connection.
But how long are these sets that you're doing that? Like you must be doing like the biggest set that I do is like 10 minutes. And I don't want to like
I've done it in a 10-minute set as a host.
Oh, really?
I'm like hosting the show and I'm doing 10 up top, right?
Yeah.
And there's somebody who's loud in the front. And my job as the host of the show, when you're the host, the show is not about you. Your job is to set the energy for the other comics to succeed and to handle the crowd. Yeah, you're doing jokes, but really, number one, your job is it's all about putting your ego to the side, right? Yeah. So like, if I have somebody loud who I know like this person might be a problem for the other comics, I'll stop and I'll be like, hey, listen, you can say whatever you want to me, but if you could just not, and then I'll speak to them like a human being, because ultimately, like I said, like comedy is all about connection between the comedian and the audience, and it's a human connection. So just like be human, and then if they keep going, then you can like roast them or whatever. You know what I mean? Like get them to shut up using jokes. But I always try to go for like that first approach because I feel like it can because I've had it happen before in my early years where like they weren't even trying to be rude or mean, but I was like, you're heckling. And then I just got mean right away. I got like roast mode. And then the crowd's like, hey, they weren't really that bad. They didn't deserve it.
Yeah. How'd you get into stand-up? Like,
I was just home on summer break one year. And then I just was like, I want to try to do stand-up. So I just found an open mic nearby. And then I started doing the open mic. And then I would just go there every day and I would work for free. Yeah. Like I would like help out at the club. And then I would like be able to do open mics for free. And then eventually I would just every day throughout the summer break. And then I think the next summer I came back and then I would be DJing. So like on shows at night, there's somebody who just plays music between each comic. And I would do that for like 5-minute spots. And then I slowly just, and I kind of just like stayed at that club for the most part.
Yeah. Well, like inspired you to do it. Was there like a stand-up comedian who was like, that you watched and then you were like, I want to do that,
I'm trying to think. I mean, I always loved Mulaney. Loved Mulaney. Yeah. I don't have that story where I'm like, oh, I was a kid, my parents had the records, that just wasn't like that just wasn't the home that I grew up in. And I wasn't a funny kid or a funny person. Like when I started doing stand-up, my friends were like, why are you doing stand-up? You're not funny. And I wasn't, but it was something that I wanted to do and it was something that I did love. And I loved the challenge of it. And, through a lot of failure, I just kept going and going and going. And now I'm at a point where like, it's how I make a living, and that's what also keeps me going and everything else. I go like, okay, if I could go from being a super not funny 18-year-old kid who like bombed all the time to being able to like make a living doing this, then with when it comes to, writing, I was horrible writer when you start, because of course, why wouldn't you be? Now I think I'm like competent, I understand the nature of it. I'm not, and so I'm going to keep pushing and pushing. And then you get a little bit of success and then you fail, and then It's like, how do you react to that failure? And how you react to that failure determines not necessarily whether you're going to be successful, but whether you have a chance of being successful. Because if you stop, then you have no chance. But if you keep going, then you have a chance. I think
Daniel, you nailed it in the sense that that's what it's about. Is I always say to my students, or ask my students, how badly do you want it? Well, no. You need to really want it very, very badly, because nothing comes by casualty. You have to work it out. You have to work your craftman. You have to. So everything that you have telling right now, that's what it is. That is
That's
everything.
That's everything. And dude, David, I'll tell you this, man. How you react to failure is just as much of a practice and a skill as doing stand-up, as writing every day. Like all those things, it's just another opportunity to strengthen that muscle, and strengthen that tool. And that's all we are. We as artists are just like fucking tool. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse. My bad. You can believe me. We as artists are just like toolboxes, you know, and we start off with like maybe a wrench or maybe a hammer, and maybe like the wrench is kind of stripped or what. Oh no, you strip. I'm not a handy person, so this metaphor might go off the rails. But like, or maybe it's like not a great hammer, whatever. And then over time, you get a nice hammer and a nice wrench, and then you know you start building out. You know, you get different types of screwdrivers. Like I said, very vague with the metaphor, but you get what I'm saying. And then you're a handyman. You know, at first maybe you can just put up a picture, and then you get to a point where it's like, oh, I can build a house.
Yeah.
And it might not even be a good house, but you can build a house. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
Daniel, I have to say, I mean, again, we could be here talking for hours. First, it's something about quality, not only of your work as a comedian, but quality as a human being, which is very inspired. And we do appreciate your time and your commitment to the students, and to be able to be in the video podcast. Like I said, this is something that I do exactly what we're talking right now, because I feel very connected to my students and their success, in my opinion, professionally and as a human. Active part of the society is my success, also as a professor. So that's where I like to bring people like you to be able to show them that it's possible to live in love with what you do in your profession.
Yeah, and then to fall out of love with it, and then maybe fall back in love with that too. You know, but
it's okay because he loves love. You know.
There we go, baby. You got it.